Hi everyone, welcome. I'm preparing to get in here into the VermiBag Mini to apply a feeding. It's been 10 days now since the last check-in, and it seems like, hey, isn't that too soon? Don't you need to give them a little bit more time? Let them work down what they got in there? Probably going to be some leftovers. It's possible. I did watch the video from the last check-in, and it did seem like the types of foods that were placed in here were the sort of things that will probably go pretty quick, especially since everything's been frozen, as is the case with today's feeding. Came out of the freezer a few minutes ago, so for the most part this is frozen still. But once that stuff thaws, it's just going to turn to mush. Versus certain things that really stick around a long time if you don't freeze them. Yeah, so that's just my routine for preparing their foods. Nothing fancy. Chuck it in the freezer. It's good to go. It's been prepared. So this will be feeding number 44. After what? Now a year and a half or so at this age. The system's getting pretty mature. And there is a mysterious object in here though, which oddly enough has an age that's higher than the actual age of this system. How is it that we've got a big old pumpkin stem in here that's 645 days of age as of today? Well, you know why? Because it came with the worms from their old home. They had that pumpkin stem in their old home, so that already gave that object a certain amount of time spent in the worm bin. And I keep going back to that point in time. I actually created a tracker in my spreadsheet, or at least made a note of when that feeding was, when the pumpkin stems were placed into the old system that these worms came from before they came into here. Now we've got ourselves a coffee filter, which traditionally is our feeding zone indicator. I'm thinking if there's anything in here that I don't want to just blend in, perhaps I'll just place it off on the side in with the food collection, and we'll add the food later. And I believe that for the most part, the only thing I'm really interested in setting aside and not just blending in a generic or general way is the big pumpkin stem. So it's usually pretty easy to zero in on it just because of its size. Big old pumpkin stem, which, just looking at it now, it feels like it was probably twice the size when it was originally placed into a worm bin fresh. Probably still even had some pumpkin vegetable matter attached to it. So let's see how many of these worms we could possibly evict from here, because I guess my idea was to set the pumpkin stem aside. But since the place I was going to put it is pretty much like an iceberg full of frozen stuff, I didn't want any poor wormies subjected to that. So yeah, it's only been 10 days, and it's been very chilly. So one way or another, I've somehow managed to get it into a 10-day cycle at this point, where I do manage to get it back around to feeding a system after it was, after we've sort of dealt with feeding all of the other systems that have been waiting longer. And then the oldest system from the back of the line just eventually makes its way back to the beginning. Perhaps if I took a week's vacation, we'd have a larger interval between feedings, but I just keep on going with it. I can't resist. I saw this big pile of worms hanging out down here, and yeah, there's leftovers, that's for sure. Kind of makes me wonder if I should maybe scale back the amount of food that I was going to give them today. It would be just as easy to give them half of what I bought down here and take the rest back to the fridge. Well, let's see. Maybe we'll just try blending in what we found here in the feeding zone as leftovers, and see how we feel about possibly just giving them the whole portion. When I hold a bundle of material in my hands full of worms like this and they vanish out of view, they're still in my hand. Very few, maybe a couple drop off, but for the most part they stay in the material that they're inhabiting. So all those worms that were visible a moment ago are still right here, and I was amazed that that piece of orange peel stayed on my hand as long as it did. Because there's a lot of big chunks of food in this pile, so making the whole thing kind of unstable and crumbly. So let's just see how we feel about maybe blending in all the leftovers. So that was really going to be my game plan today, was just to once again blend everything together. This looks like the stem of something. Just make sure it's not growing. Yeah, unusual texture, whatever it was. Maybe the, what's the part of the navel? The navel of the orange? Maybe that's what that was. Okay, I want to be really generous with the bedding. So I got to make a pretty good size hole for that. And I'm not sure if it's coming through on the camera, but the material that I'm excavating here has a very nice moisture content to it. Out towards the edges, we normally do encounter material that we find to be perhaps a little bit on the dry side, and we usually come in with my squirt bottle. I'm prepared to do the same today. But before we work our way around the edge of the bin and see how things up against the wall look, let's just drop in their feeding for today. I think we're going to be okay placing the entire portion down in here, because it is a fairly large hole I excavated. So what I've been doing lately, and I thought I would just follow suit, I'm pretty sure this is the manner in which I did it last time too when we were in here, was I take some of my prepared bedding as a foundational layer underneath the feeding. And yeah, that's a generous quantity right there. So let's push a good bit of it to the outer edges here. Leave plenty of space for the lovely feeding to drop in. Start with the infamous pumpkin stem. And let's hang on to the feeding zone indicator. Oops, sorry. Since I don't have a replacement for them, they'll just keep using this one right here. And I have a feeling, but you know, before I just assume it's needed, I'm going to do a quick status check on the outer edge, as we normally do. Just probe down and feel like, what does it feel like, you know? Just assess it for moisture content, and it's definitely dry. So if nothing else, at least around the very outer edge, up against the wall, where I'm assuming the material's equally dry all the way around, we'll just do a quick till, while at the same time dispensing fluid down into the hole. And I guess this is the point where we get to just blend in the leftovers, the leafy matter that was left over from last time out on the surface, and at the same time making everything nice and damp. How do you like that? My glove looks almost like it doesn't even need to be taken to the sink to get rinsed off. It's so clean. And that's pretty much it. I mean, definitely generous with the bedding, right? When we went in there before dropping in the food, all that prepared bedding of mine that went in. And guess what? Even more. We're going to do the same as last time. Come in with even more lovely leafy matter to coat the top surface. Doesn't have to be a great amount, but I do feel like the stuff sort of serves as almost like a mulch layer, like a moisture barrier, locking in whatever moisture's below it. But then again, don't forget, what comes next is something that pretty much hands down beats everything else as far as moisture preservation, is this plastic sheet. This is definitely the thing that's making this system habitable. Otherwise, I think the whole top surface, probably a good few inches down, would be just too dry, you know. And this actually makes the stuff right under the plastic really nice and cozy for the worms to come right up and hang out, and gotta love it. Alright everyone, that's it for the check-in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.